There are some questions that just, well, they never really go away, do they?
Hmm.
And this tension, this push and pull between what we owe to God and what we owe to earthly rulers, it feels more urgent than ever lately,
It
doesn't
really does. It's like
it?
it's a fundamental dilemma, and you see it echoing all through history, through centuries of thought and faith.
Yeah,
Today, we're going to dive into a really key moment where this exact conflict just flares up.
exactly. We're doing a deep dive looking at this fascinating YouTube video. It's from the 2819 Church channel.
Okay.
The sermon's called Entry and End Times Render What You Owe, and it's by Philip Anthony Mitchell. He really unpacks this passage, Matthew 22.1522.
Ah, yes. The tax question.
Right. And Mitchell sets the scene perfectly. It's Jesus' final week in Jerusalem. Things are incredibly
Oh,
tense.
absolutely. Mitchell really paints that picture, doesn't he?
Hmm.
The atmosphere in Jerusalem then was just electric. You had anticipation, but also fierce opposition.
Yeah.
Jesus was under immense pressure, and this question about taxes, well, it looks simple on the surface, but it was loaded.
Okay, so Mitchell points out that the people trying to, trap Jesus here were this really unlikely team, Pharisees and Herodians.
Right.
I mean, weren't these guys usually enemies? What brings them together on this?
That's what's so striking, and Mitchell really hammers this home. It is an unexpected partnership. Think about it.
Yeah.
The Pharisees, they deeply resented Roman rule, especially the taxes. They saw it almost as a betrayal of their faith.
Right. Compromise.
Exactly. Then you've got the Herodians. They were supporters of Herod, who was basically Rome's guy in charge.
Okay.
So they were much more comfortable with Roman authority. For these two groups, who normally disagreed on so much, to suddenly team up,
Yeah.
just how much of a threat they both thought Jesus was to, well, to their own positions, their own power structures. It's like oil and water suddenly deciding to mix because there's a bigger fire in the kitchen.
That's a great way to put it. And the flashpoint for this weird alliance was taxes. Mitchell really highlights how explosive this was in first century Judea. Why so intense?
Well, if we zoom out like Mitchell does, Roman taxes in Judea, they were way more than just, a financial thing.
Okay.
Sure, these taxes paid for the Roman Empire, roads, armies, stability, all that. But for the Jewish people, it also meant funding this foreign power they hated.
Mm-hmm.
And crucially, it meant their money was supporting things they found abhorrent, things against their faith, like temples to Roman gods, pagan stuff.
Ah, I see. So it wasn't just the money.
Not at all. It was about this fundamental clash, culture, religion, their whole identity felt like it was under attack by this system.
Right. Okay. So you've got all this simmering tension, and then these temporary allies, they send their disciples over to Jesus. And Mitchell really focuses on how they start all this over the top flattery. It's
Yeah.
almost funny how fake it sounds, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
You have to wonder what they were thinking. Mitchell breaks down their opening line. Teacher, we know that you are true and teach the way of God truthfully,
Mm.
and you don't care about anyone's opinion. You're not swayed by appearances. Now, okay, maybe those words technically had some truth about Jesus.
But the intent.
Exactly. Mitchell makes it crystal clear their hearts were completely malicious.
Yeah.
This was just a tactic, try to soften him up, make him feel secure before they spring the trap.
It's such a classic manipulation tactic, isn't it? We see it all the time.
Absolutely.
Mitchell even sort of connects this to our lives, right?
Mhm.
Warning us to be wary when someone lays it on too thick.
He does.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that, just because someone says things that sound right or even true,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean their motives are pure.
Yeah.
Mitchell's point is, look deeper. Discern the intent behind the words.
Okay, so after the schmoozing, they drop the bomb. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Mitchell really unpacks the impossible spot this put Jesus in. A total lose-lose, wasn't it?
Precisely. As Mitchell lays it out, Jesus was completely boxed in. If he says yes, pay the tax, he loses the Jewish people. They already hated Roman rule. He'd look like a collaborator siding with the oppressors.
Right. Big problem.
But if he says no, don't pay the tax, well, that's basically rebellion against Rome.
Yeah, treason.
Could get him arrested on the spot.
Mhm.
He's walking this incredibly fine line with a huge drop on either side.
But of course, it's Jesus. He sees right through it.
Yeah.
Mitchell points out how Jesus knew their malice, right? He says, "Why put me to the test, you hypocrites?"
Mm-hmm. Pretty direct.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating, isn't it? How, as Mitchell underscores, Jesus just immediately cuts through the pretense. He wasn't fooled by the flattery for a second.
Nah.
Calling them hypocrites, it exposes the whole game. Their real motive wasn't getting an answer. It was trapping him. It just shows his incredible wisdom.
And then comes that just incredibly clever move. He asks to see the coin, the one used for the tax, the denarius.
Yeah.
And Mitchell explains this wasn't just any old coin, was it?
No, not at all. As Mitchell details, the denarius wasn't just silver. It had Caesar's image stamped on it.
Okay.
And crucially, an inscription that basically called Caesar divine, son of the divine Augustus, or something similar.
Wow. Okay.
For devout Jews, believing in the one true God, this was deeply offensive. Blasphemous, even idolatrous. Just handling the coin could be seen as a compromise by some.
So when Jesus asks, whose image is this? Whose inscription? And they have to answer Caesar's. It just sets up his brilliant answer perfectly. Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. Mitchell really digs into this, starting with that first part, render unto Caesar. What's the core idea there?
Mitchell really emphasizes that word render. It means, like, give back what you owe, what properly belongs to someone.
Okay.
Since Caesar's image, his inscription, was on the coin, Jesus is saying, in a way, it belongs to Caesar's realm, his sphere of authority.
Right, the earthly kingdom.
Exactly. So giving it back as taxes, he was just fulfilling an obligation within that secular system where Caesar's authority is, well, effective and his money is used. Mitchell connects this to the broader Christian ethic of being, responsible citizens, obeying laws in worldly matters.
Mitchell even brings up other parts of the New Testament, right? Like Romans 13, 1 Peter 2.
Yes, he does.
Which also talk about being subject to governing authorities. It seems pretty consistent.
That's a key point Mitchell makes. Those passages, generally speaking, encourage believers to be law-abiding, to respect the authorities that in the New Testament view, God is allowed to be in place. It's presented as a way to live peacefully, honor God within society, be good citizens, basically, traffic laws, tax laws.
But Mitchell's also really clear that this obedience isn't absolute. There's a line, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
A point where our first loyalty to God has to take over. That example from Acts 4 he mentions, Peter and John refusing to stop preaching.
Yes, that's the crucial caveat, and Mitchell rightly includes it. While we're called to respect earthly authorities, that respect isn't unlimited.
Right.
When the government tells you to do something that directly contradicts a clear command from God, well then, as Peter and John show, obeying God comes first.
We must obey God rather than men.
Exactly. That sets the vital principle for navigating those tough spots where faith and state demands clash.
Okay, so that's the Caesar part. But let's shift to the second half. And to God, the things that are God's. Mitchell asks this really powerful follow-up question, doesn't he? Whose image is on us?
Ah, yes. This is where it gets really deep, really personal. He draws that line straight back to Genesis 1.26.
Created in God's image.
Exactly. Mitchell reminds us of that foundational truth. Just like Caesar's face was stamped on that denarius, God's image, his likeness, is imprinted on every single human being.
And because we bear God's image, Mitchell argues, we ultimately belong to God.
That's the implication.
So what does it actually mean to render unto God the things that are God's? Mitchell gives a pretty extensive list, doesn't he? Worship, praise, loyalty, total surrender.
Yeah, Mitchell emphasizes that what we owe God isn't just like a slice of our lives or our Sundays. It's our whole being.
Everything.
Everything, not just showing up for church, but every part of life. Our thoughts, actions, desires, money, relationships, everything needs to be brought under God's authority. And he really challenges the listeners, where might you be holding back? Where haven't you fully surrendered to God's will?
Yeah, Mitchell gets pretty direct there, doesn't he? Talking about specific areas where money, relationships, our own plans and ambitions, places where maybe we like being in control instead of yielding to God.
He does. It's a powerful call for some really honest self-examination.
Yeah.
It really is. Mitchell's point is that living as someone made in God's image means this complete, ongoing commitment to him in every single area. That's the ultimate rendering he asks for.
And this is where Mitchell brings it right into the present day for the listener, connecting this ancient teaching to some very current worries.
Right.
He talks about potential friction, even now, maybe especially in America, between faith and government. He even mentions the idea of biblical teachings potentially being labeled hate speech.
Yes, he does raise that possibility.
It really makes you pause and think about how we navigate these dual loyalties today.
And that's where the historical story becomes so relevant now. As Mitchell points out, okay, the specific issue was Roman taxes back then, but that core tension,
Still here.
it's constant. Our duties to God versus our duties to the state. And as laws change, as society's values shift, believers might face, maybe increasingly face, some tough choices about where their ultimate loyalty really has to lie.
Yeah.
Mitchell's example about potential conflicts over biblical teachings just underscores how this dilemma is ongoing and maybe even intensifying for some.
It's definitely a sobering thought. It takes this, 2,000-year-old scripture and makes it feel very immediate, very real for us listening today.
It really does.
Yeah.
It pushes us not just to understand the history and the theology of what Jesus said, but also to really grapple with what it means for our own lives right now, the challenges we might face trying to live out our faith in this complicated world.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, the core message that really stands out from Mitchell's sermon is this continuous balancing act, right?
Yeah.
Figuring out our responsibilities as citizens here on Earth while always keeping that ultimate unwavering allegiance to God. It's a tension that probably isn't going away.
Not likely. And as Mitchell makes clear, navigating it takes constant discernment, doesn't it? Prayerful thought and ultimately being ready to prioritize God when those earthly and heavenly demands seem to pull apart.
So maybe here's the final thought for you, the listener, to wrestle with. Given that you bear God's image, what does it really mean for you personally to render unto God the things that are God's in every single part of your life? Are there corners you're still holding on to? Areas not fully surrendered? What would that look like to really give those over to Him? Definitely something worth thinking about.